welcome to Chromatic Knits. My name is Michelle and I'm coming to you from Arkansas. Thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so happy to have you here. Welcome to everyone that's new and welcome back to everyone that is returning today. Today is powered by Diet Dr. Pepper, my drink of choice. Loving it so much. Normally in the winter months I'll drink tea every day, but in the summer months it's just too hot to drink tea. So go for Diet Dr. Pepper today. And I have some projects to share with you, some knitting. So please grab your knitting or your crochet or your crafting. I would love this to be a mutual craft time for both of us. So what I have to share today is I do not have any FOs today. But I do have several whips. I have been working on several things. So my first whip is my shark mittens. So this was a kit by Jimmy Bean's Wool. This is a pattern by SpillyJane Knits. And this was a kit during Shark Week of 2020. So last time I only had the cuff and then I had like the tail and the head of the shark. And now I have multiple sharks, and I'm starting in my third set of sharks. And then I have one more set after this. There's 4 sharks total, and then the finger decreases. So we're getting there. And then this is the back side. So this is just alternating between the silver, which is the turn colorway of Madeline Tosh Euro sock, and the blue, which is the Nassau blue colorway, also Euro sock. On my size 2 DPNs. These are Nitpicks nickel plated DPN set, and my All You Knit Is Love stitch marker from A Needle Runs Through It. Loving it so much. So I have another one of these to knit, but this is like very potato chippy, and honestly all I wanted to knit on was this. And there was one night I was like, I have to work on my other projects too. I was like, I can't just work on this. But yeah, so made some progress on that. So next time I'm hoping to have a hoe, and then have started on the second one. So, and this is in my Fancy Boy Designs bag. Found this on Etsy. Love it so much. Oh, and one of my, last week, I had finished a pair of socks and I was so excited. My first vanilla socks ever, and I gave them to the recipient and they fit, and I was so excited. And she just looked at me and she was like, they're socks. And I was like, but you don't understand. It takes so much work to make them fit. And she was like, then I do just buy socks. And I was like, no. It's like, I want to make you socks. Has anyone else had this struggle with their partner or whoever? They're making socks for you. Like, but I just want to keep you warm and make you wool socks. But yeah, no, she's totally knitworthy. Don't get me wrong at all. It was just really funny. She was like, yeah, they fit. And I was like, you don't understand. I was like, we had to do measuring to make sure that they fit. And we had to make sure that they were the same. So they fit the same. It's like, but yeah, so they do fit. I was super excited. I was super nervous that they wouldn't fit. But we are getting there. So that's very exciting. And then another exciting thing that happened this week. So I had mentioned my first episode that I was frogging this project. Oh, and this is in my Mrs. Brown's bag. So I had gotten an advent calendar from Teeny Button Studio, their Quidditch calendar last year. And you could choose your house. So I picked Gryffindor because, again, nerd, but awesome with it. Really good with it. So I was like, you know what? I just didn't like the way that the pattern was turning out, and I just wanted to do something different. So I have never crocheted in my life, but I figured, why not? So I decided that I was going to make this into a crochet blanket after I frogged it. So I frogged it, and I made the chain, and then I started the single crochet. So I'm making a granny stripe blanket, and I'm using the tutorials from Attic 21. and as well as a lot of YouTube videos, because I've never crocheted before. I don't know what I'm doing, but it's going to be great. So far, I'm loving it. It took me an extremely long time to make this chain, but you know, it takes practice, and I'm just not used to it yet. So I am using, this is a Clover and More hook. This is this G size, or a 4mm. Loving that so much. So I'm really excited to keep going with this and get into the groove, because I feel like it's one of those things where, like, once you get that muscle memory and once you get in the groove of doing it, that it's not bad doing it. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't take you as long to do it, and you just kind of get in a groove and it becomes kind of mindless. But right now I have to use a little bit more brain power to do it, but you know, it's all good. It's all good. So, but it's going to be great when it's done, because I have so much. So this is their DK advent calendar, and I found that I've had a lot of DK yarn. I went on this like really long streak of purchasing DK yarn, and so I just have a ton of it. DK yarn, and I just have a ton of minis. So I'm starting I'm starting a granny stripe blanket in DK yarn. Eventually I'm wanting to do one in either in fingering weight, or I'm going to do a Cozy Memories blanket. Have any of you done a Cozy Memories blanket or a granny stripe blanket? Like, what's your preference? What do you think is the most, I guess, meditative to do? Because I have a lot of minis, and I want to do a mini project with them, you know? Or if you have any other project suggestions for minis, I would love to hear about them. Please comment below. I love reading your comments. I comment on all of them, and I reply to all of them. Thank you so much to everybody that commented. I will be announcing the winner of the giveaway at the end of this episode, so please be on the lookout for that, because I have drawn that as well. But I have 2 more whips. So my next whip is, I've been working on the Rosie Bloom Shawl by Stephen West. This is in my hedgehog bag by Longview Creations. I went over the yarn for this, but I'm using West wool and hedgehog fibers, alpaca cloud. If you want more details, look at one of my previous episodes, so I've gone over this before, and I know that that part is boring, so I don't want to bore you by going over it again. So see my little progress keeper. So that's what I've done since the last time I've shown this. So that's pretty exciting, and I'm starting to see the pattern. So if you think about the shawl, this is one of the sides of the shawl, and then this is the center part, this part. So you can kind of see those little like flowery rosette looking things in that lacy kind of pattern section. That's why this is called the Rosie Bloom Shawl. So this is the center part of the shawl, and then I'll pick up stitches on the side and do a brioche border on the shawl. So this is where we're at so far. I haven't shown this before, so I want to make sure I show this. This is my progress keeper. It's just on a little lobster clasp from Simply Serving. If you haven't seen her stuff, she does such a good job. It's awesome. So it's a little wizard cupcake. So you can see the sorting hat has a face, and it's a little wizard cupcake with the Hogwarts letter. Loving that so much. As you know, I'm a huge Harry Potter fan and a huge nerd. So I'm loving this. The only thing that I am not a huge fan of so far, I've noticed, is, well, it's not that I'm not a huge fan. It's just one of my biggest struggles with this is that the alpaca sticks to everything. Like the alpaca cloud, like, sticks to itself, sticks to my West wool, like, sticks to everything, and it tends to get knotted or like tends to get stuck. And so sometimes I'm struggling with that. If anybody has any ideas of how to stop that, that would be wonderful. I would love to hear those ideas. And I'm knitting this on Chowgu, I believe size 7 needles. Again, it's linked in the previous episode as well. So I'm doing some work on that. So it's just a little bit of a pattern with that garter section. So it's pretty mindless. And then my last whip, I have worked on my Slipstravaganza Blanket. So the last time I showed this, I just had the black section in the center, and now I am a couple of colors into the honeycomb section of the blanket. So this is really simple, just slip stitches and knitting, just straight like knitting in the round, with some purling to kind of separate. Loving this so much. All the yarns that I've used for this, I've mentioned before. The teal is a Homespun House Monstera colorway. This is all DK weight yarn in her MCN base. Let's see, this purple is Drops. Let's see, Lima, which is a wool alpaca blend in there, like this purple colorway. And then this is Swish DK from Nitpicks in the natural colorway. And then this black, I've talked about the colorway before, I can't remember what it is right now. But yeah, so making some good progress on that. This has really been really good, like TV knitting, because it doesn't take a lot of brain power to do it. It's just one of those like mindless things that once you get the pattern down, like you can just ignore it. Like you don't have to stare at the pattern, and you can just keep knitting in the round. So I'm really liking that. And I'm keeping that huge project in my Hokey & Co bucket tote. This is the cranberry bucket tote. So highly recommend that. And I've got some new scissors that I got from the Crazy Sock Lady. So I have these that kind of push out and they unfold. So these are the rose gold scissors. So I'm really liking those. I've gotten another pair of those from Jimmy Bean's wool in the past. Not rose gold, but a pair similar to that, and I really liked it in the past. And then yeah, I got a second pair of those, and then I got a pair of snips just to see how they work. So it's got a little cover on the blade of the scissors. See that there? And then you can just snip, snip. So I haven't used these very much, but I plan to. They're just kind of living in this project bag right now. So I did get those, and then I got a couple more things in the mail. So I got this from the Nitpicks sale that they had going on. So this is their Hawthorne base, which is fingering weight. This is a gray and white marl, 357 yards per 100 grams, 80-20, so it's 80% superwash fine Highland wool, 20% polyamide. Yeah, so this is what I'm planning to use to make my long summer cardigan by Hohi Locatelli, and then I'm going to use some red one-of-a-kind Lola Bean Yarn Co. for the stripes. So I'm loving that. And I got 9 skeins of this because it was, normally this is like $16 for this. But they had it on sale for $5. And I was like, what? Like sweater quantity for like $40, like $45. So naturally, or less than that, but naturally I was like, what is the maximum number that I can purchase at a time? And it was 9. So I was like, I'm taking this home. This is mine now. So I will be using this to start that project here very soon. And then so we know that if you've watched previously that I made socks for the first time on 9-inch circulars to see how it is, just to see how it goes. Since I have 9-inch circulars, I figured I would use them. So I've loved making socks, highly would suggest, 10 out of 10. But I would like to try on Magic Loop. So I got some Nitpicks fixed circulars in size 1 and size 0 on their nickel plated fixed circulars. These are 32-inch cables. So it's size 1, which is 2.25 millimeter, and size 2, which is 2.75 millimeter. So I'm really looking forward to giving these a try to make some socks. And I got, so every year Nitpicks has this type of yarn called, they have their self-striping yarn, which is Felici yarn, and they come out with new colors every summer. So some of the colors are new, some of the colors are returning from either the previous year or previous years, and it's like a big deal when they come out, and they usually come out during their summer sale. So naturally I bought 2 of all of them. So I bought 2 packs of all of the different colors. So they've got a little bit of everything. So they've got kind of rainbow and some like yellow and pink going on, but then they've also got kind of like dark greens and yellows, some red. So this one is, let's see, this one is Vampire Vibes, and this one is Speed Racer, and this one is Red Rocks, and the rainbowy one is Psychedelic Sunset. And then there's so many more. So there are, I believe, 8 different ones in total, and I got 2 of each. So just because they come in 50-gram balls, and I didn't think that 50 grams would be enough, even if I changed out the heels, toes, and cuffs to make a pair of socks. So I got those to make that. So that is started. And then, so one of the things that I wanted to talk about this week is how to knit when you're on a budget. So so knitting can be very expensive, right? Like all that hand-dyed yarn, and can be very expensive. You know, it's like between usually $25 and $40 a skein, depending on what you're buying. You know, something like Spin Cycle is going to be more expensive. But some easy tips and tricks that I've learned to kind of keep my purchasing down and to keep my purchasing budget friendly is to find yarns that I love and find alternatives for those yarns. So if you look at a pattern, it'll suggest a yarn. So maybe it suggests Spin Cycle. There's another company called Yarn Hero that makes Spin Cycle-ish yarn that is much cheaper than Spin Cycle. So that would be a good alternative. A lot of times I turn to Nitpicks if, you know, they want magpie fibers or they want like a hand-dyed yarn. I go to Nitpicks and I see if they have a yarn that is pretty similar to the yarn that I'm using. And there are websites out there where you can look up yarn substitution. So you can go to, if you just Google yarn substitution, there are tons of websites that give you information about how to substitute a yarn for a yarn. And the biggest key to take away from those articles and those websites is that you want to make sure it's the same fiber, or at least the same type of fiber. So you want to make sure, like, if you have if it suggests a cotton yarn and you replace it with a wool yarn, like that may not work. So if it's a cotton yarn, try and find a cotton yarn. You know, if it's an 80-20 base, see if you can find an 80-20 base to replace it with. most bases are pretty, like, you know, basic bases you're going to find all the time are going to be like 75/25s, 80/20s, 100% superwash, you know, and all the different weights. So fingering, DK, worsted, Aran, sport. Those are going to be easy to find. You know, some of the blends may be a little bit more difficult to find, and cotton yarn is going to be easy to find. But usually if it's a plant fiber, you want to replace it. If you're going to use a different yarn, you want to use a different plant fiber. You don't want to use an animal fiber to replace a plant fiber. So if you have an animal fiber, you want to replace it with an animal fiber. So if it's supposed to be alpaca and you have mohair, like, that's fine because they're both animal fibers. Or if it's cotton and you replace it with like a cotton linen blend or something, that would be fine because those are plant fibers. And then there are a lot of other companies that also provide cheaper yarn. So Nitpicks is one of them. Cascade 220 is another one. So Cascade brand yarns, and then Drops yarns. So those three have some cheaper option yarns available. And a lot of times, so Drops yarn, if you're going to get it, the only place I've really found it in the US, because it's a European brand, is on Etsy. There are a ton of people on Etsy that sell Drops yarn, and all the different types. There's like saffron and lima, which is what I have, and all of the different types of drop yarns are available on Etsy. They're like $3 a ball, and it's like a 50 grand ball of yarn. So you can get a 100 grain ball of yarn for like $7, $6 to $7. So, and then Nitpicks, depending on what you get, the prices vary. As far as like, because they also have hand dyed, they also have machine dyed, they have different levels of processed yarn. They have bare yarn, that's going to be cheaper. So if you want to do something like hand dyeing something, or trying to dye it with like Kool-Aid or Sharpies or something, you could try Nitpicks Bare, which is what a lot of people do when they start out dyeing. They get the Nitpicks Bare to try it out, and then before they order yarn from a mill. And then Cascade yarns. Some of the Cascade yarns are a little bit rough, on the rougher side of superwash, but they're still pretty close to skin soft. So I would still recommend them, and they're going to be a little bit cheaper and a little bit nicer on your budget than, you know, a hand-dyed yarn would be. So those would be my suggestions for yarn replacement yarns, or companies to check out that have cheaper options for you. And then as far as needles go, so knitting needles can also be very expensive, but one way to kind of save in the long run is to get an interchangeable set. So interchangeable sets are going to run a little bit over $100, depending on which one you get. So, you know, there's Haya ones, there's Chowgoos, there's Addies, there's Carbons, there's Signatures. You know, the Signatures are going to be way more than, say, a Chowgoo set, just because the Signatures are much more expensive, period. So you can find them on Amazon. You can find them, a lot of local yarn shops have them in stock. A lot of online yarn suppliers also stock needles. So those would be a good place. I got an interchangeable set, and then I also get individual needles sometimes. So like those Nitpicks needles are actually not bad. I've used them before, especially their DPNs aren't bad. But that's just my preference. You know, I've never had a problem with one of their cables before, so I would recommend those. Other places, a lot of times you'll see like sales on Etsy, or you'll see sales on needles at random yarn shops, because they want you to buy needles to buy yarn, right? So I would just look up like needles sale, like knitting needles sale, and sometimes that'll come up on Google. So I'd highly suggest that as well, just because they can get expensive if you buy them individually. The only knitting needles that I wouldn't recommend, so anything you can do on a straight needle, you can do on a circular. So if you don't want to buy 1800 knitting needles, then I've changed from buying all of the straight needles to circulars and just doing it on circular needles instead of trying to do it on straight. I know some people have a preference one way or the other, but that's one way, instead of buying both, that you could choose one or the other so that you don't have to worry about having, 800 needles of all different sizes and lengths of cable and whatever. So that's one way to do that. And then you can always, if you say that you have a project where you need the same width of needle, the same size needle, you can always get a new cable if you have interchangeables and put stoppers on the ones that you're leaving in the project that they're currently in, and then just move them to the other project, and then just move your needles back and forth and swap out the stoppers. So that would be another way to do that. So you've got some options. Those are some ways to stay down on your pricing there. And then also with stitch markers, those lightning stitch markers, those light bulb ones, you can get those pretty cheap online, or just the plain circular metal ones you can get pretty cheap online. If you just go on Amazon, you can find a ton of them for like just a few dollars. So I would also recommend those. So if you're just looking for some like startup stuff, that's what I would go with. If you need project bags, a cheaper version of that would be like a makeup bag that you could get at like Walmart or Target. A makeup bag would work just fine. It's the same thing. It's a bag with a zipper, most likely. And then you can find them in all different sizes, right? You can find a little makeup bag, you can find a big one. So that would be another alternative. Or sometimes you can get like cheap drawstring bags from different places like sports shops, or from Target, Walmart, in the purse section. So those would also be a good option as well. So just some cheaper ideas. I know that knitting on a budget is difficult, and sticking to that budget is difficult because there's so much yarn and it's so pretty and we just want to buy it all, right? Not just me? Okay, awesome. So, yeah, so those would be my tips and tricks for that. Now, for the moment we've all been waiting for, we have a winner. Yay! For our 10 subscriber giveaway. So our winner is Alicia Wood. I apologize if I said your name incorrectly. It is ALICIAWOOD. You are the winner of this week's giveaway. So if you could please either send me a message on Instagram at Chromatic Knits. So it's chromatic_knits on Instagram, or you can send me a message on Ravelry, Chromatic Knits. Or you can send me an email, chromaticknits@gmail.com. I would love to hear from you. Please send me your name and your address so that I can get that yarn shipped out to you ASAP. And I love doing giveaways. I'm hoping to do probably about one a month or so. So be on the lookout for that. And that is all that I have this week. I hope you all have a wonderful week, and I will see you again next week. I think Wednesdays are going to be my normal time now. Sorry that I had to kind of change things up. So I think I'm going to do Wednesdays and then post Wednesday afternoon. So be on the lookout for those, and happy knitting. Have a wonderful week. Bye.